So, looking at Lenin here, how can we figure out if he's successful? And so what would be a good measure of seeing if the people of Russia thought he was successful? Just think for a moment. And in a democratic country, which Russia is now, it would be the same as Canada or Germany. So how do we know if Canadian politicians are considered successful? They get re-elected. And here's the Constituent Assembly. Hundreds of people elected from all over Russia. And what you want to imagine is what percent are Bolsheviks? Are they 100% of this group? Are they 10%? Are they 80? Are they 40? Just think about it for a moment. They're popular. They've gained the government. They have Lenin at their head. They're very powerful in the country. Here's how they did. There they are, the big yellow group. No, they're the red one. Lenin was not amused and not happy. They're less than a quarter of the group. And the social revolutionaries here are the largest group in the Constituent Assembly. So, the Constituent Assembly elected a social revolutionary as its president. They refused to approve Lenin's decrees. What do the Bolsheviks do? They leave the assembly after one day of debate, 13 hours, empties, and is then shut by armed Bolshevik supporters. 12 die in the subsequent protests. Now, Lenin justifies the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly from the 5th to 6th of January 1918, and this is in one of his writings. Those who point out that we are now dissolving the Constituent Assembly, although at one time we defended it, are not displaying a grain of sense, but are merely uttering pompous and meaningless phrases. At one time we considered the Constituent Assembly to be better than Tsarism and the Republic of Kerensky. But as the Soviets emerged, being revolutionary organizations of the whole people, they naturally became far superior to any parliament in the world, a fact that I emphasized as far back as last April. By completely smashing bourgeois and landed property and by facilitating the final upheaval which is sweeping away all traces of the bourgeois system, the Soviets impelled us on the path that led the people to organize their own lives. The people wanted the Constituent Assembly summoned, and we summoned it. But they used immediately what this famous Constituent Assembly really was, and now we have carried out the will of the people, which is all power to the Soviets, and crushed the assembly. Now, this gentleman here is Trotsky, and here he is rallying the Red Army, and I put the picture there because we are just about to start another war. We're going to end World War I first, though. They have an armistice, November 1917. The Bolsheviks debate the German demands. They're waiting for a revolution to occur. There's division in the Bolsheviks as to what they should do with the German demands. They pause. The Germans invade more. And finally, Lenin signs the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk on the March 1918. He has to have peace. He's promised it. He needs it. His armies don't want to fight. He signs the deal, hoping either one, there's going to be an international revolution and all the workers of the world will unite. Doesn't matter what the terms are. Secondly, if he signs this treaty and Germany is defeated, doesn't have to honor the treaty either. And anyway, he has to have peace. When they sign the treaty, 1/6 of their population is lost, 2 million kilometers of land, 26% of the rail, and 74% of iron ore. It is a terrible treaty. And that's why we're asking the question, is it a good treaty? Well, they first tried to delay signing in hopes Germany would lose the war or have a revolution like Russia. They eventually sign it March 1918. As you can see, Russia lost 34% of its population in this quote, 54% of its industrial land, 89% of its coal field, and 26% of its railways. Russia was also fined 300 million gold marks. Now keep all of this in mind when Germany is complaining of the Treaty of Versailles, which is signed about a year later. And what you want to think about is why or why not was this a good treaty for Lenin, or why or why not a good treaty for Russia. Now, the territorial changes you can see here, this is all the lands they lost or countries that became independent. and that gives you a sense of all of Russia. But this was highly productive land and really was needed by the country. Now, this is going to be one of the causes of the Russian Civil War, which we're going to look at next.